We are the biggest, we are the largest, we are the highest, we are the greatest, we are the tallest African spiritual platform. I'm Queen Hadasha, call me Empress Makida. I am Labraska, the Sun Goddess. Call me the Spear of Destiny. I am the World Star number 8. Don't forget to call me the Woman of Peace. Call me Jezebel. I respond to all this name. Hey! It's not easy to walk around with all these kind of names. I welcome you, my people, with lots of love. Love, love, and hate. Hate is one of our slogans. Conscious family, I hope you guys are doing well. I love you, I love you guys, brutal. I welcome you to another great episode. Today we are going to get into history that every child must or should have knowledge about. I welcome you. Let's welcome our guest for today. Papa, we welcome you to Revelations.
Thank you, Sister Makeda, one of your names. Huh? Hey. I got it.
Okay, we appreciate you here. Please, today is your first time on this biggest platform, so please kindly pay obeisance to the followers and the subscribers. I mean, say hello to them and introduce yourself to us.
Hello to the subscribers. I think you're in the right place. You're at the right channel. I'm getting vibrations just walking in the door. I wish you could be here to feel it, but since you can't be here to feel it, at least subscribe to it. That's what we like to see.
We welcome you.
Thank
we
you.
Want to know who you are. What's your name? What are you?
Oh, who am I? What am I? My name is Jerry Johnson. I come here from Los Angeles. I come to Ghana in first time in the early 90s, but I came here to live at the end of 2003. So this is my 20 or 21st year. I had done a lot of different things in my life. I've been in the military. I've worked in aerospace. I've done different things, but I've always been raised in the black, I'll say, civil rights, black power movements of the United States. You know, my mother and my father. And I always had that feeling that we have to do everything we can in the time we have on this earth to make sure African people are respected, protected, and sovereign. So that has been on my mind, and it became a natural progression to actually come to Africa, live in Africa, work in Africa, and try to see what impact that we can make.
See what impact we can make. That's a great decision. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
We are going to discuss things in history that every African child should know. That's the topic we are going to discuss. But before we start that, I want to know a few things about you since you were there and you came back here and all that. You were there. What made you come back to Africa?
You mean after 400 years?
Yes.
Well, I think some things dawned on me when I was in the U.S. In the U.S., and I understand in the U.K. and these places, no matter really what happens, they always have that control. So if you were a black man or woman in the U.S., an African man or woman, at the end of the day, they have final say, and you have absolutely no recourse. And the reason you don't have recourse, whereas other groups in the U.S. do have recourses, is because they tend to have nations somewhere else that have power and influence. They can provide some protection, some assistance to their group, no matter where they are in the world. So if you're a Chinese or a Japanese and you're in the U.S., whatever happens to you, the majority people have to be mindful that you are a member of a national entity, a national power that can come and to your assistance, or they can provide even some sanctions if you are maltreated on any kind of systematic basis. You see, in the U.S. we don't have that. They can maltreat us as systematically and as long and as repetitively as they like, and there's no one in Africa that has the power to say this should stop. So why is that? Because we haven't rebuilt ourselves where we need to be here on the African continent. So we have to get busy about that project so that wherever African people are in the world, we know we have respect and protection. And these are the ideas of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And as I read Garvey as I was coming up in my 20s, I began to say, this makes more sense. Build power somewhere. Garvey said, a strong man is strong everywhere. Of course, the reverse of that is a weak man is weak everywhere. So when I see some of the things that are happening, say places like in Burkina and Mali today, Niger, hopefully Senegal, maybe Guinea, I began to feel like, okay, people are getting the message. You have to build your own power. Because if you don't have it, you can be Barack Obama. At the end of the day, they still call you the same names behind the scenes. So that's what we feel. That's what I feel. And so now then you have to ask, how does this relate to the subject about what what African children should know? And that's basically
that's your
what
topic.
We like to
so
talk
we will
about.
come to the topic right now. I want to understand a few things from you. You've
Sure.
answered one question. Now, what I want to understand is, you've been there. I wouldn't want to take you back, but because I want to understand a few things, since you have been there.
In the US.
Yes, the
Yeah.
reason I will ask you this question. Okay, so when you were there, what did you hear about black people before you got to know, or before you found yourself? What were you hearing? Because we are here. We always hear that the black Americans there don't actually gel or bond with the blacks when we travel there.
The black, you mean the Africans who
Yes.
travel there from the continent?
Yes. How true is this?
You know, I don't see that as much as other people do. But you know, we're all a bit out of our minds. The African American, the continental Africans, we all have a lot of things going on in our heads that are not healthy.
We want to hear a
so
few,
for instance,
so we are able to.
So for instance, when I was growing up, I can remember a argument between two men young teenagers that I knew, I was friends with. And they were both dark-skinned. And they were arguing about who is the darkest, which, you know, the one who was the darkest in this case was the loser, I guess, right? And they were, you were blacker, you were blacker. Then one said, well, you're an African. You look like an African. And he literally went to fight. So you had these two teenagers fighting in school because one gave what at that time was the ultimate insult. Well, you look like an African.
It was an insult.
It was an insult because the way we had been raised, everything in Africa was primitive. People were eating one another. You know, I mean, these are the things that we were fed in the schools, in the churches, in the media. You understand? So it took some time for us to begin to see what was going on. And a lot of people never have seen it. And since I've been living in Africa a long time, I can also see there's some terrible misconceptions about what we are like, we being the American African there. And so we have just a lot of misunderstanding, but the longer we're together, the more we realize that we're in the same position. And I can tell you that even Africans who go to the U.S., go to grad school, go to medical school, there are surgeons, there are this or that, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Kenya. If you get a chance to talk to them one-on-one, even late in their careers, they will complain bitterly about the way they were treated. They will say the surgeon who I trained, so-and-so, is now the director of surgery, and I'm still here. They will say, you understand?
I understand.
So they find out, if they didn't know before, who they were in the eyes of the European or the Asian or any of the rest for that matter, but especially the European and America because they're in the majority, and they hold power. So they find out eventually. So then late in the game, they sometimes begin to understand, but they get into propaganda over here telling them that, oh, you know, the people there are lazy, or the people there are violent, or they're whatever it is that we are. and whatever it is that you are. Well, when we were together, we were none of those things. So if we exercise a little common sense, we have to say, what changed in our behavior and who changed it? Right? What changed in our behavior here? Who changed it?
Who did that?
Well, who do you think did it? What intervention came in that changed the flow of African behavior and history?
Who did that?
People came in, some came from the Arab world, some came from the European world, disrupted what it is we were doing. And of course, for us who were taken there, who lost your name, I did a skit with the children just the other day. I didn't even intend to do it, but I saw the program was going in a direction, and I know children when they're bored. So they were there and they were getting bored. So I did a small sketch where I took a family, I'll call them Nate family because I was in Ningo Prom Prom area. And then I pretended that they were all coming off of a slave ship, the family together. They had been captured as the Nate family right there in Prom Prom Ningo, taken all the way across the water. The first stop was Brazil. Then I pretended to be a Portuguese man buying someone to work on my Portuguese plantation, you see. So I said I needed a strong boy. So I took the boy. Now he was Nate, but I was De Silva, which is a Portuguese name. Immediately, once I bought him and sent him to the slave quarters, he became De Silva. They go back, the rest of the family get in the boat, get in the ship, they travel a little bit more. They get to Cuba, then I pretend to be a Spanish, slave owner, plantation owner. So I buy the woman, the mother, because I need someone can cook in this. She's no longer Nate. She is now Martinez, you see. On down the line, Van Dyke, if the Dutch bought her, you see. So one day you're Nate, within 30 days, you're Van Dyke, you're McDonald, you're Martinez, you're Francois, you understand, and you're De Silva. And how do you find yourself again? Now imagine this 400 years. You see what you lost? So the crime is so huge, it's almost hard to articulate. You understand? So people here, having gone through the side of it where they lose people, and the people over there who lost our way, it's very difficult to pull it together. But the ancestors, they want us back together. So that's what they're doing. And
the blood is still flowing through your veins. Okay. I know now you are settled here. Yes. And you are very okay because you've married one of my sisters from the north. So you are here, your children and everything is 22 years, you are far gone. You have been able to be stable here. People come and go. They are not able to be okay here. Then they will go back in as much as they want to be back home. They come and they don't know where to go. They can't find their feet. They fall into wrong hands and all that. So since you are stable here, I want to know 3 things you will do for those who are there. Though when they come back, they have only their color to prove that they are here. Here they will call them black man. They won't add anything like black American, that you are here from home. But you will not be able to identify your home like you said. The name is mean, and progression has also gone on. But you are here, you are settled. What are 3 things you fought before settling here? And what are 3 things you will do to help those who come and fall into wrong hands?
Well, I think the thing about falling into wrong hands is people here, of course, see you as an economic opportunity, and I don't make judgment on that because I know I have some idea of what we have been through on this side. So I just tell people you have to recognize that people will see you as an economic opportunity, but don't let that dissuade you. Just be more careful, and time will come. You begin to get sincere people. Don't give all your money to the first person who you feel good about, because then you'll be on the next flight home with empty pockets. So take your time. I tell them that if you're doing business, start small. Maybe you'll lose something in the beginning, but you'll learn how things work. So that's one thing I tell them. The second thing I tell them is that making things better is your responsibility, because you brought your ancestors, as you mentioned, their blood is still flowing. So if you brought your ancestors back home, so you have responsibility to make home what it was supposed to be. You can't just sit here and pretend that your blood is coming from somewhere else. How is that? So then, in fact, I even say sometimes that maybe you even have an obligation if you're in the U.S. or the UK or this place, because of the blood that's flowing in your veins. That great-great-great-great-grandmother who left against her will, you still have her blood. Do you have obligation to bring her blood home? I think you do, if you think of it in those terms. So 3 things I would say: just start small, be careful, be confident that you will eventually get into the right situation. That's why I say start small, because if you blow all your money, you have to run away before you can find out what is good. And then lastly, I think try to develop an African consciousness, so where you know more of what you're seeing and feeling. That doesn't take so long, because there's some very, very strong psychic connections that are still there if you just let them be. So I think that's what I would say. But the other thing I say to everyone is, why are you coming? Because if you don't have a sense of mission, then every pothole is going to upset you. Every official, you go down, well, we all know, all the places you go to customs, and there's all things going on. And for you, what is this all about?
I even heard that even when you come back, you have to work on something to become a citizen and rah.
Yeah, they have that too, if you want to become a citizen. And I have my opinions on that. I feel like we're African. So some white men 100-something years ago were drinking beer in Berlin. They drew some lines and said, this is Gold Coast, this is Senegal, and we're now supposed to abide by that. So you think I'm going to stand in some long queue because these guys had a dream of a place they didn't even know, and then they say these are the borders and we're supposed to stay with them? Our children, I have this African ancestral wall, so I bring children all of the time. Students, I've brought thousands of students to come through and look at these ancestors and talk about them, and I explain them to them. And if you ask a Ghanaian child, where did the borders come from of Ghana or Togo, they think Kwame Nkrumah drew the borders.
Imagine.
You understand? And so I don't feel any, when I feel patriotism, it's African patriotism. It's not a, Togo patriotism or something else. So
that's your topic, so we will get into that.
Okay.
My last question before we get into that.
I keep sneaking into that.
Yeah. Because that's what you want to talk about.
Well,
so
no,
it's
all
understandable.
Of this is good.
What I want to ask is that you've been here for 22 years. Now, 21 years. When you see people traveling there, will give anything to travel out there. You are here. You see this every day. Your brothers, your African brothers, your Ghanaian sisters, and they want to pay everything to go there. You hear this every day. So this person is being defrauded for visa. They will leave everything they are doing and they go there, believing that they see a world better than here out there. You've been there and now you are here. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I can understand a young person or someone who's got he feels he's trapped here, not being able to earn what he thinks he should earn. Sometimes I spent a lot of time around Legon, and of course there's a lot of unemployed graduates and these type of things. So there is a problem. But at the end of the day, if everyone thinks they can escape the problem, you're going to escape one problem for a new problem. But you can't see that. And I think what happens, especially with the men, when they go out, they feel an obligation to show everyone at home that they've done well, right? So you can see a man, a Ghanaian or a Nigerian, a Senegalese, I've seen them all here, and they're they're big. And you look at them, you say, hey, is this the same guy? And the money he'll spend when he's here, the everything, the showing off. You see him back there, hey, the man he's struggling because he feels like he went all the way to America or he went to this place. If he comes back, he doesn't look big, he's a failure. So sometimes you just see the way they suffer there because of the image that they have to keep. Meanwhile, they get married, they go into debt, and before they realize they're just trapped. But the real problem is, even when they quote unquote do well, they don't get the respect of the other men, and I'm talking men now, because we haven't built a nation that anyone respects. So they see you as a Nigerian in Ghana, in Los Angeles. What is Nigeria to them? What is Ghana to them? Are you an independent nation? Can you have your way at the United Nations? Can you defend yourselves? Are you producing anything? If they don't see that, then they don't respect you, because then they see you as a refugee to come to try to share in what they have built. Now the truth is, a lot of Africans built what they have, but this is not about fairness, this is about power. And they have the power now to dictate to you the terms of your existence. So that surgeon that I'm telling you about, you get him in a quiet, give him a little appetizer and let him talk, he'll tell you it's not what it's cracked up to be. But now he spent his life there, what can he do? So he comes back, he builds a 25-room mansion in Ghana. None of the children come live in it, the thing is empty. They're inviting you all at a time to come see it as proof that what they did for 30 years was worth it, and then they die there. What life is that? So, the whole thing.
What life is that? This is
what
a
life
serious
is that?
statement.
What life is that? And I always feel sympathy when I see them there, because sometimes they are trying to have fun so hard. Big party, whereas when they're here, the fun is effortless. They just enjoy, you know what I mean? Because they're home, they're with their people, they're eating what they want, they're doing what they want, they have some respect.
Alarm will not even allow you.
Pardon?
You are in a hurry to go.
Oh, so it's But I understand why the young men and the young women want to leave, but a lot of that is their perception based on the media on what America is.
And what somebody has built a house here, they won't tell you what is eating them. Like the example you made.
Oh, it's not easy.
Because if someone who is a whole doctor, who has schooled there, become a doctor, is not respected or placed at a place where he's supposed to be placed because of the scheme, how much more you? That is going to look for. But people would put camera. Somebody, I saw a video that will put camera on them and be cleaning, excuse my language, toilet, and be like, you are better here cleaning this than be in Ghana. Like, yo.
What kind of man is that? What kind of man would say that? How does he see himself? You're cleaning toilets somewhere, but you're better off. Better off how? Because some small money you made? You're better off than if you were farming in the mountains here, bringing your food home to your family?
This is a question.
This is, so when you hear people saying that, you really have to ask them, what have they internalized about themselves? What kind of man would say that?
Let me leave this one. I don't want to be emotional. So let me leave this one. I was going to ask.
But it's socialization is what it is. We're socialized in a bad way there. We're socialized in a bad way here. But we know what we need to do because our ancestors are there to tell us what needs to be done and what our work is. So
we are discussing things in history that every African child should know. Please take us to.
Okay, well, you probably guessed just listening to me talk some of the things. As I was mentioning, when we walked through our African ancestral wall with the students, there's 92 things there, 92 large portraits, but I'm not trying to get to them to remember everything about everything. I want them to enjoy and be exposed, but when you leave, I want them to have a sense of potential, pride, empowerment. So one thing that even the first drawing on the main part of the wall, these are very big. I have the word Eve, the name Eve. I have a black African woman And
1 minute, the wall, you created it or you came to meet it there?
Oh, no, we built it. I used to go to the schools talking about the history, but it was too much. I used to go to around Legon, but by the time the students get that age, they've already internalized something that's not good. So I had to start going younger. So all around, you know, Afenya, Dawenya, all out that way, I was going to the schools. But I thought of an idea. It would be easier if I painted these, since I had the space on my land on the wall. So I just plastered one of the fence walls and then had 7 different artists draw these large portraits. And it's free, so it's not a commercial thing, you know, it's just for the students. So I started, the very first one on the main section of the wall is Youve. It's a black woman in Africa, because we know genetically, and any Chinese or Russian or Hawaiian, it doesn't matter, geneticist who has 1 semester in school knows that Homo sapiens sapiens, that's our species, began on the African continent somewhere around 300,000 years ago. And there's no question about that. You know, some people have, you know, from a religious standpoint, I'm not talking about people who just believe what their doctrine is. I'm talking about from a science standpoint, or a secular standpoint, if you will. That's just common knowledge. So my question is, 300,000 years ago, we have Africans who are Homo sapiens sapiens, our species. Same brain, same everything, watching the world, asking the questions that we ask now. So that Youve, of course, is Adam, and they always say, where is Adam? But I said, well, you know there's an Youve, there's an Adam somewhere. But they see that Youve, and a lot of people take exception to that black woman 200,000 to 300,000 years ago as being the mother of all humanity, humanity being Homo sapiens sapiens. So I like the children to understand that they are among the parents of humanity. And I have one thing that I'll show you here. And I just copied these, or printed these on the way here today, but I said, you know, maybe I'll get a chance. This is a very interesting chart that I've seen a few times online. We're talking about the human family tree, right? So everything here is in Africa, everything going on. So you're talking about 300,000, 200,000 years ago. These are the Homo sapiens sapiens. Now you may have heard of things like Neanderthal and the other one. That was much earlier, but that's not the same species as we are, as the Chinese are, or everyone else. So now if you look at this, what this shows is it began to branch off, this human species, the variation, genetic variation began to spread out as time went on. So they ended up splitting into what here is the southern Khoisan, which is in South Africa, the Khoisan people, the northern Khoisan, the Central Africans, the West Africans, East Africans. So now somewhere about 70,000 years ago, which is represented by this, the first Africans began to leave the African continent. So I like the students to understand, and I like everyone to understand that from 300,000 years ago to 70,000 years ago, every human being walking this earth of our species was still on the African continent. You understand? 300,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, no one had left Africa. 70,000 years ago, they began to go out of the eastern part of, up through what we call the Nile Valley and going out that way. And this small branch here represents those Africans leaving and populating the rest of the world. So if you just take a step back and look at this, all of this is in Africa today. And these Africans left. Now the reason they changed had to do with climate and these type of things. That's why they...
I want to understand something before you continue.
Yes.
In this case, are you saying Adam and Eve were the first people on earth?
I am saying that if you want to designate someone as Adam and Eve,
Okay.
you would have to designate them as the beginning of our species on the African continent, because there was no one anywhere else. So I like the children to know that for the majority of human history, there was no human beings walking the earth who were not on the African continent. And now, even where we are, look at this genetic diversification of Africans compared to everybody else in the world. You see, and so the idea somehow that we should be subordinate or under or less than this small offspring who's changed with the times as they moved to China and to Russia and to Europe and all of these places. They change. The weather changes you after tens of thousands of years. But how can they, and even Africans, some Africans are still even in there, but how could they possibly claim any kind of genetic superiority or rights to power over us? Do you see how absurd the whole thing is? So this can't stand.
So what happened? What happened before they were able to dominate all of us like that?
Well,
what happened?
Well, once they came back, we didn't know that they had changed the way they changed. You understand? Things, it's like your child leaves and you don't know what kind of behavior they've been out there, and they come back and you say, oh, come on in, let's eat and everything, and they rob everything in the house. You don't know this is what happened. You don't know they changed like that when they went out. So we have always invited these people into our homes all over Africa.
So what can we do now?
Oh, we can do plenty. But the first thing you have to know is who you are. So I like the children to know you are the parents of humanity. You have the most genetic variation of any group anywhere, and everybody else is over here. That's not to claim superiority or whatever necessarily, but it certainly cannot be inferiority if this is you and that's them. So we're not going to accept, and we don't want our children to accept the idea that we are supposed to be dominated by slivers of groups.
That's why I'm asking, what can we do? Because it's a huge problem.
Well, first thing we can do,
because it's difficult for a landlord to be there, and a squatter will drive the landlord out of the house for a slave, a stranger to come and dominate the house. So we should be able to find something. We know we have a problem.
Okay.
Right now, solution is my problem.
Okay, so let me give you one example. On the African ancestor wall, there's Thomas Sankara. You know Sankara from Burkina Faso, the red beret, refused to be corrupted, refused to pay odious debt, and of course was killed for it by the West and the African hands who work for the West. I was in Burkina in 2007 with my wife, who was on here a little while ago. We went to the grave of Thomas Sankara. Now, in those days, if you mention Sankara in Burkina Faso, everyone would be quiet. They won't talk to you because they're afraid, because, you know, his friend is the one who threw him out. So it's very repressed in terms of people wanting to praise or even acknowledge Sankara. It can get you in trouble. So they don't talk. However, but they're talking to themselves. I went to the gravesite. By the time I was walking to the gravesite, I was about maybe 150 feet away. At the foot of the gravesite was a young boy giving a smart military salute to Thomas Sankara in his grave. When he heard me, he dropped the salute and he marched away. I told my wife then, you see, these children are still being socialized for freedom, for power, for independence, to be themselves again. Now, I don't know who that boy was, but I look these days and I see their new president, Traore, and I imagine it's someone like that. So who trained him? Who socialized him? Who gave him the feeling that he was not supposed to be second shift to the French or anyone else? Who gave him that pride and that confidence? Someone did that. And that's our work. So if we're sitting saying, oh, you know, what do we do now? And we have all of these children who I'll mention later, who are the most brilliant children in the world, who are going to be the majority of the children in the world in the next 40, 50 years. And they're coming out of these schools and these village schools, and they're in there learning about the queen and not about who they are. So if you're letting them walk around without being socialized in a way for power, then you are signing your own grave, your own obituary. But we don't want to do that work, you see. We want someone else to do that. We want to be. So it's no secret. You can talk to 10-year-olds in any society and give an idea of what that society is going to be like in 20 years. Because if they're socialized in a way that they have pride, that they won't accept domination by others, then that society is going to be fine.
It's because we are waiting for Jesus. We are going to heaven. Well, why should we waste our time here?
Well, you're waiting for Jesus. Has he come? Has he come?
Are you saying he won't come? You don't have to discourage me.
Well, I don't know. I'll leave it there. I don't know. But ever since I was a little boy, people were preparing for Jesus to come that summer. The next summer. Christmas, this, that. So I've watched Jesus disappoint 2 generations now who are walking around with signs saying Jesus is coming. And maybe that Jesus is something else that you're looking for. Well, why would you look for someone else's Jesus when your ancestors are staring you there in the face?
Oh, mercy.
So if that's what you're waiting for, I won't tell you it's not coming. This I don't know, but I won't stand there with you to wait.
I'm still waiting. I don't need your opinion. I'm still waiting.
Are you really waiting?
Yes.
Look at how she looks at me. Look, even the look you give me is not credible. But okay. You're
watching The Biggest and the Largest. This is a serious matter because some of us as Africans or black nation have admitted that we cannot make it. The reason we keep running there.
Oh, you mean outside?
Yes. The reason we keep running there, and whatever we go through, we feel we are better there than here.
Okay, but let me ask you. Right now, you can just look, tomorrow you can be in Ouagadougou. Tomorrow, if you leave tonight, by the morning, you could probably be in Niger or Mali. Maybe you fly, bus 24 hours. You understand? And these are people who have, not all of them, of course. We have a lot of people that want to get out of there too. But there are people there who have decided that they can handle it, that they can control it, that they can build it, that they don't need to rush to France. They don't need to do this. All they need to do is have the strength to keep control of their resources, their lands, and their minds, and they build anything they want. So I don't think you're going to see the long lines at the French embassy once the young people have changed their minds. I don't know. Haven't been to Ouaga for a while, but I suspect with the mood and the confidence that's growing, they won't be wishing what can be outside. They're going to demand the correct price for the correct price for the resource. Look, those uranium was about 10 CDs. What is it? About 8 or 9 CDs per kilogram. That's what the French were paying.
And on
the market it's like 3,000 something per kilogram. So you imagine how rich the French are getting off those in Niger. If you're paying you 8 CDs and the correct price is 3,000.
And they were thinking they are rather poor.
But now they're saying enough of this. So they'll stand strong, and everyone here should be standing with them. Then your mind will begin to change. You begin to realize you don't have to disgrace yourself in other people's country. Clean their toilets. I had a young man who was working with us. He said he doesn't care if he has to just wash the dog teeth in America. It's okay with him. Just let me get there. And he was serious. People walk across the Sahara and die. You understand?
That's the problem.
That's the problem. But I think, as I was using with my Burkina example, someone has socialized enough of them to get out of that mindset. And we can do the same right here. We can do the same in Nigeria. We just have to get about the business of doing the work, which we don't want to do.
Continue your history. What and what should they know?
Okay, so we mentioned that one, and then this just kind of goes along with it. And all you're really seeing here is Africa being the cradle of humanity and how we went out to populate the rest of the world. And of course, it goes all the way across what is Russia, and today it is Alaska, through Canada, all the way down into South America. And this is just a genetic trail, but the point here is this is the motherland, and that is who we are. So my point again is, if you are from the motherland and have populated the rest of the world, how can you be inferior?
That is the problem.
How can you be inferior?
That's why I'm looking for solution.
Well, the point I asked, the question is rhetorical. How can you be superior?
How?
How can you be inferior to your offspring? The answer is you absolutely cannot be, unless your mind is crazy. So we're in the de-crazy work. We're trying to de-crazy ourselves. So let me get past that one quick, because I know your time is running. Now, I was mentioning earlier, we were talking about Adam and Eve. When I was growing up, the same white Adam and Eve, all of the movies, all of the Sunday school, same thing that you have here. And now that we know this is the cradle of humanity, now that we know that it all started, this is all Africa, then you have to ask yourself, exactly where in Africa did these people come from, who they've told us were Adam and Eve? Congo? Senegal? Are these Gaos? This is just all nonsense. We have to take this, ball it up, and throw it in the trash. And we should do it in front of our children so they can see us throwing that one away.
Adam and Eve. You just killed them.
These have been dead, have never been alive. So you can't kill something that was never alive. So don't lose sleep on that one, please.
I'm serious. I'm waiting for them.
Well, here. They're here. You're waiting? They've now come.
You're watching the biggest and the largest. I never even why all day, you. Please continue.
Okay, now
when they come after you, will you be able to survive?
When who comes after me? Them?
The Adam and Eve owners.
Well, I'll take my chances.
Okay, you continue.
No, they better not. If I see them before they see me, then. Okay, now our people, another thing I like students to know is that we were there all of that time, but we weren't just standing there looking around. We were thinking, we were creating, we were inventing. So one thing our children don't know is that these kind of things, 20,000 years ago, this is the Asango Bone that was found in the Congo. The Asango Bone, as I say here, is one of the very first calculating instruments that we've seen anywhere on Earth. We're talking 20,000 years ago in the Congo, okay? And just one side of the bone, you can see prime numbers between 10 and 20. The point I'm making here, 20,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago in the Congo. And this is any mathematician, if you ask them where is the first signs of math in the world, they'll tell you this. It's even such, I was going to bring a book today and I forgot about it. If you go to any of the international schools, if they're using Cambridge and all of this, Oxford, Cambridge, whatever, inside their math book for, 9, 10, 11th grade, they have a picture of students standing in front of this bone. They've made it, 10 feet high or something, and it says right there in the book that this was the beginning of mathematical thought in the world. So the European knows it, but our own children don't know it. So our children are sitting here wondering, can we be good at math? How can you ask that question if you invented math? Okay, I'm going to keep moving because so that's just one example. They have something else called the Lebombo bone out of South Africa, which was much, much older than this. I think it's 60,000 years. Another thing I like, so that's the second thing. Another thing I like for them to know is they were the creators of the world's oldest, greatest civilization we've known, ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. And if we just look at it and think about it, the Nile River runs from south to north, right? So all of the beginnings of what goes into later ancient Egypt all comes from the interior of Africa. Now this has been proven by Sheikh Anta Diop, Theophila Benga at the United Nations 1974. The books, the covers are off. There's absolutely no doubt about it, except among the disingenuous. And we ignore them. So we like our children to know when they see and hear about ancient Egypt on their TVs and at Christmas time and everything, they have to remember this civilization that built these pyramids. Some of these pyramids are 4, 6, 8,000 pounds, and they're built with such accuracy that it cannot be replicated. Now this was some 4,000 years ago. You understand? With such accuracy by these Africans that it can't be replicated today. Now you ask me how I know it can't be replicated today. This African civilization that had this math, had this science, had this architecture. The way we know is because the Japanese tried to do it. Just a small scale version of the pyramids that the African built, they couldn't do it. It was a complete engineering disaster. Now these are the Japanese who we think know everything. Well, this just shows you what we have lost. But as long as you know you have done it, Marcus Garvey says, what man has done, man can do. So if you know you've done it, you shouldn't fret. You know you can do it again. It's just someone has to remind you that you were the ones who did it in the first place. But we have all of these children walking around in all of these village schools, and no one is reminding them that they did something, or among the people that did something, that the Japanese, who they would love to go visit and live in their country, couldn't do it even with today's technology. This is who you are. So this is the children need to know. That is us. Let me keep pushing because I know time is scarce. Now, another thing with Egypt, of course, when I was growing up, and as you were growing up, what did I see of Egypt? These are the pharaohs. Right? This is a typical example of Egyptian pharaoh. You've all seen this. You watch these movies, you know, especially around Christmas or whatever, 10 Commandments, this, that, and the other. They always have some pharaoh who looks about like this. But this is to get inside the head of our children, to grow up with the complex that the people who built this great civilization look like this. Well, we don't have to speculate on this one at all. Because you can go into the museums where they're actually holding the true picture and the true sculptures of the first pharaohs of ancient Kemet. This one, which I have on the wall, in the African ancestral wall, there he is. This is Narmer, or some call Menes, the first pharaoh of the first dynasty of ancient Egypt united. There he is, 3,400 or 3,100 BC. You understand? 5,000 years. So now, someone is playing games with your mind. If this is what you believe, and this is what is. I mean, this is the actual one now. His sculpture is there. It's in the museum, British or one of those museums. There he is. And all my students, I like them to know that, you know what I do with them? I have them choose someone before I tell them who it is in the group of students that looks most like this. And he comes and stands, or she, next to the picture. We laugh, we take pictures. Then I explain to them that this is the first pharaoh of the first dynasty of ancient Egypt. And if this is not an African, I just saw him outside on the way coming. You understand? So that's another thing. So we're running on time now. Also, Imhotep. This is the world's first medical doctor. This is in the 3rd dynasty Egypt. I had doctors at the ancestral wall one time. Medical doctors, Ghanaian medical doctors, full doctors, bluffing plenty. You know. as you know, I'm sure they're proud. And I mentioned to them that Imhotep was the first medical doctor in history. Not only that, he was an architect, he was a poet, he was a scribe, he was an astronomer, and so he's a multi-genius. So I told them when they take their oath, when they graduate from medical school, they take what's called the Hippocratic Oath, right? The Hippocratic Oath, and inside the Hippocratic Oath, the Greeks who wrote the Hippocratic Oath mentioned Asclepius. But the Greeks will go tell you Asclepius is Imhotep, the true god of medicine, 2,000 years before Hippocrates. So I told this to the medical doctors there, and they all looked at me like, you know, I was on one of their drugs. But then someone went off and checked it out. So I want our children to know, if you were the very first medical doctor in history, why should you stand in a queue, go all the way to the U.S., study medicine, go through all of that, become a surgeon, teach white Asian surgeons how to do it, and then they put you, make them your boss? And you're the first. The people should be coming to you if we were in our right minds, but we are not.
Oh, why are we not?
We're working on it. If you work on the children, they will be. This is Hippocrates, by the way, who is just Johnny come lately. Our time is almost gone. Okay, so
no, continue, please.
So that was something.
Continue.
Okay, I will. But I was just saying the one thing I wanted to, well, you've seen the things that I wanted children to know. Now we have all of these resistance figures, a lot of people on the wall, but I like them to be sure they come away with something. Now, of course, we weren't only doing medicine. We weren't only engaging in spiritual communion with our ancestors over these thousands of years. We were inventing writing. Right? The Medu-Neter, or the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet, these are the first writing systems. People will tell you about cuneiform writing, where they, you know, pressed into clay tablets over in Samaria. That was about the same time, a little bit later than the Africans with the Medu-Neter or hieroglyphs. But whatever cuneiform writing was, it started there and it ended there. It didn't trickle down to inform the rest of the writing systems. So here you have it. Here is the Egyptian hieroglyphs, or the Medu-Neter I was just talking about. They have other forms of it, the hieratic and the demotic, which is like a cursive form. But what you find is when you look at these other pseudo-hieroglyphics, proto-Sinaic, these things that they found in the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, all of them had pieces of this original. And what comes out of that? Phoenician. What comes out of Phoenician? Greek. What comes out of Greek? Latin. What comes out of Latin? Modern European. What comes out of Phoenician? Aramaic. What comes out of Aramaic? Nabatean. What comes out of that? Arabic. What comes out of that? Persian. Turkish. You understand? The point that and this is the written history, where scripts were written. So the point that I want the youngsters to understand is, it wasn't just medicine. It wasn't just astronomy. It wasn't just spirituality. It was also writing, thinking abstractly. And we're talking 3,000 something years BC back here. This makes sense of what I just said when you think about the fact that this is who we are. Who would you expect to start spirituality? These people? Who would you expect? You have all of this. Who would you expect to start the writing? Somebody trickling out of Europe somewhere? How is that possible? It's not going to happen. This is who you are. And there's no possible way. That's why in the future, the African will stand again.
Amen.
Because look, how can you maintain this kind of imbalance? It's not possible. So don't lose hope.
We will be great again.
And so this is just...
When I say we will be great again, people are, when was Africa great?
Well,
we were chicken.
Well, if they don't know their history, that's their problem. And the last thing, although there's a lot of things I'd like them to know, is once again that they will rule. You know, I've traveled around, and the African youth is the most powerful, most influential, most dynamic, most brilliant, most strong, the strongest youth anywhere in the world. I'm telling you. You can't go and it's not just music, it's everything. Right now, because of our condition, we end up excelling in some sports and music and that. But we will excel again in all of the things that have to do with the mental and with not just the physical and the spiritual. And I was just, and this is a little bit funny, but I was watching something. My children are 14 and 12. So of course they like all of this music. So they were playing something with this Rema, you know. What's the song, Rema?
Yeah, Rema. Baby, calm down.
Baby, come down. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Okay. So they were playing something, and I saw the video. This is just a clip from the video. This is Rema in India. The children, the young people were going absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, if you go to India and you send a Russian over there to start singing, you think you'll get this kind of response? If you go to Russia and bring the African, you'll get this response. If the Chinese man goes to Canada, Chinese singer, you think he'll get the Africans get the same response everywhere.
Even in America and everywhere in the world, those who are doing sports, music, everything. They are blacks.
Okay.
We are we.
We are we. And so the power that is in the soul of that black youngster who's walking around in every village in Africa today, and we're just saying, hey, go there, move out the way. We're playing with God.
We are we. Something goes, something come. We are we. Hey, we are we. Something go, something come. We are we. Hey, we are we. Oh, we will be great again. I'm telling you this. I might not see it. I might not be there, but I'm so confident in myself that the preaching, the consciousness preaching, we will get there. I'm telling you, we are we.
When I use that word God, I use it as a general thing because people understand that. But I'm saying when you look at that child, you have to understand the spiritual essence of that child that can move every child in the world. But every child in the world can't move every other child in the world. Like, because the child in China can't move the child in Japan like that. The child in India cannot move the African like that. But the African can move all of them. You know why? It makes sense now, huh? All of this can move any of that. It makes sense. You understand? So, my last chart says that once we talk about the brilliance and the power of these African youth, well, guess what? Here are all the projections of the number of working age population in largest countries by region. 2000, 2010, 2020, 30, 40, 50. Who's got the most young people in the world? You see that? Surpass all of the rest of these, and it's happening in the next 10
and they've brought us a family planning.
Oh, of course, they're going to
that we should swallow and we should do abortion.
They're going to bring you everything. Anything that reduces, that they can do to reduce this. But you know what? They can't reduce that.
They can't.
That's like trying to hold back the ocean.
We are we.
You can't reduce that. You can't reduce it. It's inevitable.
We are we.
We are we. So don't fret. Don't worry. Don't be depressed.
I'm not depressed.
Be good.
I have Adam and Eve.
Yeah, that one. That's what I want African children to know.
Abusia, a word to a wise is enough. Africa should unite. So we are able to get there. We are everything the world. Akebulans. We are the origin of all mankind. What has bewitched us is what I don't know, but we will get there. This one, Bibi anyone of my mammy who toss watching as some make a trewi. Me dakra me to what me crem say a bear can. Please, your last words to the public, and then if there are any social media handles, if people want to ask you a question, the channel they will get through to you in 1 minute.
Okay. Well, I'm sure my wife and those have a Facebook African Ancestral Wall. If you go on YouTube, there's all kinds of places us walking through the wall because people have come to video record. So you can see what that's all about anywhere online. But the thing I want to impress the most that everyone within the sound of this wonderful broadcast, which you are subscribing to, by the way, should hear. Everyone who can hear us should know that their number one job is to not let all of these beautiful, powerful babies go unsocialized, unloved, uninformed. You're doing a great, great harm to yourself and to them to not let them know who they are. Because once they know, they'll take care of you one day. It's all of our jobs. It's all of our jobs. We have to understand the power of our next generations. If we sleep on that, heaven help us.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
I don't want to be emotional. I don't want to be emotional. But everybody should go and search that scripture in the Bible. That addition a form and quantity and ponkoso. We take it literal. Who are the royals that are walking on the grounds, and who are the slaves that are sitting on the horses? We should be able to decode the Bible so that we are able to get up, waka, and turn things around. I'm telling you. I don't want to be emotional, but we are we, and we will be great again. Akebulans, Ubuntu, here we go. Wake up.